Today I'm joined by Dr. Karamat Iqbal, who for many, many decades, over 40 years, has been working incredibly hard across the city of Birmingham and beyond with the Pakistani community, with the Kashmiri community, with the Mirpuri community, about some of their challenges, about some of the inequalities that they face, and looking at how we can start to address them as a society. But he has an incredibly interesting story about his personal journey, which we're going to touch upon today. Karamat, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So Karamat, you first arrived here in Birmingham many, many years ago as a young lad.
I did. 31st of October 1970.
Wow, you remember the exact date?
I do. It was very cold, freezing.
And how
cold.
old were you?
Well, you know where I come from, age is tricky.
Approximately?
So I often say to people, and they think I'm joking. When they say that question, I say, well, on my passport, it says I'm 66. Okay, so I was born in 1958, according to my passport. But actually, I worked out that I'm a product of 1956 because.
So you were 14. Biologically, you were 14.
Yeah.
In terms of the paperwork, you would have been 12.
12.
Right.
Yes. So that's when I arrived in Birmingham.
So you, as a 12-year-old, you'll have memories of that journey. So do you remember leaving home? And where was home for you before you came here?
Home was a lovely, beautiful village, Mora Diara, in front of Khurdpira, over the Kas from Sraki, west of Rata. Beautiful land, beautiful people, beautiful environment. So you can guess from that I had a very happy childhood. The best. It was heaven.
Yeah.
If I can I give you a bit of glimpse of what it was like?
Please do. Please do.
Okay. So there were no roads, no running water, no electricity, and we walked everywhere. If you wanted to get drinking water, you had to go and fetch it from a little natural choya and a natural well in about 5 minutes from the house. And if you needed to go anywhere, you walked. So you didn't go places just for no reason, because you had to get there. And you got there as fast as your legs would take you.
Mm-hmm.
There were no roads, so you couldn't cycle, and you had to walk.
And there's little paths where you can just about walk through them.
And I loved those paths, and I love them now. Somebody plows a field, and if enough people walk in the middle of that field on a particular route, after a few weeks, it'll become a path.
So, Karamat, you had to travel to Sraki to go to school because
yes,
there wasn't a school in Khurdpira.
You make it sound as if it's a big deal. In some ways it was, but walking a distance was normal in that world. We now live in a world where if you have to go somewhere and it takes you 2 minutes, you get in the car. But that was a world where you walked everywhere.
And so how old were you when you started to go to school? And
let me take you back to before I started school. So I had an older cousin who was at school. So in our village, there were three boys, three of us who were keen learners. The oldest was this cousin, and so he was going to school, and I used to follow him around at home in the village and so on. So I followed him to school one morning, and I got there, and the teacher looked at me and said, you can't come. You're not old enough. So I must have been 4, too young to be at school.
Yeah.
What's going to happen now? My cousin's got to stay at school. What am I going to do? So they said to me, go home. I'm 4. I've walked half an hour in a space where it's jungle and trees and full of ghosts, and maybe there are trails and ghosts, and they're going to attack me or whatever. I'm scared, but it's daytime. So I decided to walk back on my own as a little 4-year-old. And I still remember, as an old man, how scared I was. And fortunately, from all the time I was walking, I could see our house in the distance. And
is your house high up or something?
Yeah. And as is Sraki, so of course I had to go down into the Kuss and then up again. But I did it, and I managed to get home. And so that's my earliest memory. And then, of course, when the time came, I went to the school. And the school had one teacher for the whole school.
One teacher.
5 classes, class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One teacher, Master Majid Gori. Everybody in that area at that generation has been taught by this teacher. If you mention his name, people will say, "Oh, yes, he was my teacher too." So for the first 3 years, we just had him, and of course, because he's the one teacher in the whole school, he will start a lesson and he will hand it over to a responsible student and say, "You keep an eye on things. I'll go on to the second class," and within a week or two of starting school as a, 5, 6-year-old, I became a class monitor and, a responsible student. And so I was, top of the class and very keen to learn, very respectful of the teacher, very respectful of education. And but remember, as a 4-year-old, I was keen. I wanted to go to school.
And you then, it's quite ironic that you were following your cousin as a 4-year-old to school.
Yes.
You walked half an hour.
Yes.
Through a jungle to go to school as a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Because you were so intrigued by education,
Yes.
and then you later went on to develop a career in education, and you're still involved in education.
So my love of learning. I've had opportunities in later life in England, but you need 2 things. You need the opportunity, but in order to take advantage of the opportunity, you need the heart and the motivation. My motivation came from my childhood. And so after 5 years of being always being top of, in the annual exams, I was number 1 or number 2 for 5 years. And then I went to secondary school in Retta. And Sraki was half an hour away, 20 minutes away. But Retta was well and truly an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half's walk. I did that every morning. Wow. And every afternoon with other children. And I never missed a day. And I was there for 2 years when my parents decided to send me to England. And I have been a model pupil in England and model learner. I am 66, 68. 5 years ago, I finished my PhD. Education is me. I eat and breathe education. And, I will keep learning until I die.
That's amazing. Walking an hour and a half to go to
Yes.
school.
And it was, some months of the year, it was hot. It was hot. And
Well, most of the year is very. Some months in that area of Kashmir, it's very hot,
yes,
and some months it's hot, and
Yes.
you get a few weeks of cool weather.
Yes.
And the odd season of monsoon, but
Yes.
generally it's. Do you have any pictures of your time before you came to the UK?
I do. My father was in England when I was a child. So that's me as a little boy, and I have other photos of the village growing up. Somebody ploughing a field, somebody playing marbles that we used to do. I have photos of somebody fetching water. We used to play a game called Satkutar.
Sadkutar.
Satkutar. It's the current game. One of the games that comes close to is Mankala in the west.
Okay.
But in our area, it was Satkutar. You made 7 holes in the ground, and when you were out with your goats and looking after your animals, you passed the time by playing with the little pebbles. And this photo is actually a photo taken in the fields near our village, and I actually played in those holes, and you see the little pebbles, and so that's how we pass time. We also pass time by listening to our elders. There's a photo here with people sitting on charpai, on cut, and you have my father, my cousin sitting there, and you can just imagine me sitting there as a child, and you never interrupt the elders. You always listen to them, and whoever is talking, you look at them and listen to them. And so we spent many hours listening to our elders talking. And I also have photos of the school. What happened with the school was we didn't have books to write in. We had what's called a takhti.
Takhti.
And it was covered in clay, and when it dried, you wrote with a kalm, a pen, a bamboo pen that you dipped in the ink. The ink was powder. You put water in it, and you made ink. And you wrote on the takhti. You showed it to the teacher. When the teacher had seen it, you'd then take it to the water, the bun near the school, and you wash it. And you then cover it in clay again. When it's dry, you write on it again. We also had a slate, a little blackboard that you had in your hand, and chalk. And there were the 2 things we had, a slate and a takhti. Slate was for the sums, the maths, and the takhti was for our writing. And if you were in class 1, you would have qaida, class 1, class 2 you had a book, class 3 you had a book, and that kind of thing. And you looked after those books, and you read them, and you passed the exams. And
so the picture I've got of your childhood
Yes.
is, it's a beautiful childhood.
it is,
In
absolutely.
in the most amazing environment.
Yes.
But a challenging childhood too, where you don't have the benefits of some of the, today my 9-year-old and my
Yes.
5-year-old have the pleasure of iPads and computers and all the modern day technology. The education your education as a child back compared to today is a million miles away from where we are
Well,
today.
it is, but it was different. And my education was also listening to my elders. It was also, as a child, helping in the house. So before, first thing in the morning, I would have breakfast and go to school. But certainly after coming back, I would look after the goats. I would if I'm looking after the goats, I would come back with little bits of twigs, tree branches of trees, and so on, so that my mum could cook with those. So as a child, you helped out, and you did your duties. You on your non-school days, you did your jobs. You listened to your elders. You listened to their stories. So that was also part of your education.
Yeah.
You learned how to respect, you learned manners. So it wasn't just school with one teacher, with no iPads and no electricity and running water, but it had something, and I made good use of it.
You mentioned electricity.
Yes.
My ancestral village is probably 20 minutes away from where you were,
Yes.
where you were brought up, and I know that we didn't get electricity there until the mid 80s at the earliest.
Yes.
Right? And that was for that whole region. So
Yes, yes.
electricity came well after.
It did.
Internet. I still recall internet in 2000, accessing the World Wide Web in that area of the world for the first time. So technology developed. Look, let's fast forward now to. But do you have any other pictures from before you came, or can we fast forward to?
We can come to Birmingham now.
Let's come to Birmingham.
Come to
So,
Birmingham.
do you remember your journey, the actual journey from Kurd to Birmingham, and what was that like?
It not just the journey to England, but remember,
Karachi?
I had to make I had to make journeys from the village to the British High Commission to get my passport. Okay, so the first journeys, the big journeys, I had to go to Dardial to have my photo taken for my passport.
That's an hour and a half walk from Kurd.
Yes, 2 hours.
2 hours
2
walk.
hours walk.
10 minutes by
No,
car
actually,
these days.
you walk to Ratta and you catch a tanga horse carriage, and it would take you to Dadial. If you walked, it would be 2 hours. So if I had stayed in Pakistan, Kashmir, I would have gone, after Ratta, I would have gone to Dadial school, which would have been 2 hours walk. And I would have done it because my cousin did it. Carry on. So I had to go to Dadial. I had to, I remember going to Rawalpindi and to get my passport made. So that was the first time to leave the village and get on a bus and see a world with electricity and lights. I remember a poster we used to have in those days. So I grew up thinking that Coca-Cola was a Pakistani product because there was a poster in Rawalpindi which went along the lines of Coke adds life to Pindi.
Coke adds life to Pindi.
Okay? And so I thought Coca-Cola is a Pakistani thing. And anyway, I got my passport made, so a few trips to this big city, and it was like another world. And then, yes, of course, so, I got on the plane. And
where did you catch the plane from?
Islamabad.
Islamabad. Okay, so it wasn't Karachi. Okay.
No, Islamabad. And I remember my father, because I was sent with relatives, and my father took me to the airport, and we came to a door, a sliding door, and my father was told, "You can't go through here. Only he can." Pointing to me, and so my father said goodbye to me, and I went through the door.
That must have been a very emotional goodbye.
If I think about it, and I think my father found it difficult because he wouldn't talk about it. He said, I remember you letting you go. So yes, so yeah, absolutely emotional. I'm their only son, and they're putting me on a plane. And my father said to a man from Samalota, will you look after my son? And I remember the man's face. I think he must have had chicken pox, because the chicken pox had left marks on his face. He was covered in marks. And so he looked after me. And I have a memory about the journey, because for some reason the aeroplane stopped somewhere maybe it stopped in Lahore or Karachi for refueling or something. And when the plane stopped, I got off the plane. And I remember going and sitting in a cubicle on my own. And I was just sitting there, a little boy, 12-year-old, 13-year-old. And then somebody came for me to get me. And what had happened was the plane was about to take off, and the man from Samalota said to them, there was a little boy here, he's not here. And they went looking for me. And had they not come looking for me, I would still be sitting in that cubicle.
God, yeah.
Anyway, I came to England, and
Where did you land? Heathrow, was it?
Heathrow,
Heathrow.
and somebody will have come to in those days. There was a man in our family who had a car, and they will have come. I'm a little boy who's left his mom and dad village, traveled a long distance. Maybe I was asleep, maybe I was sick, or there was too much going on.
12-year-old Karamat Iqbal lands in Heathrow Airport.
Yes.
Can't speak a word of English.
I remember a couple of days later we had snow, and I really didn't like the snow because I kept slipping everywhere. And
that would have been your first experience of snow and the cold weather.
It was.
And when I talked about weather earlier,
yes,
you went from one extreme to another, didn't you?
I did. So coming from that hot climate, wearing particular types of clothes. I'm now in England, in Birmingham, Nechells, and where our family had a home, and I can tell you a little story about that, about the house.
So who was here when you came? Who was here in your family? Who did you stay with?
So a relative in our pupa, uncle, bought a house in the early 50s, and that's when my father was here. He'd stayed in that house, and hundreds of people in our community, maybe thousands, who came in those days. They used to always carry the address in their pocket, and ended up. So our community's foundation goes back to 108 St. Clements Road, which was bought in 1952-53. And so I lived there. It was a three-bedroom house, a couple of living rooms downstairs. And
was it all males?
In the early days, it was. It was all males.
Yeah.
And sometimes they had 20 people, 20 men living, maybe 25. On one occasion, we counted 26 people.
Wow.
Living in this two-bedroom, plus a box room, plus living rooms, kitchen. They slept under the table, on top of the table, under the stairs, took turns to sleep in beds. So imagine a terrace house with 25, 26 people. It was all men. And if you slept there during the day and worked nights, then somebody else would sleep when you were at work. So you took turns. But by the time I came in 1970, it was not all men. It was women, 2-3 families living there. And so I lived there for a couple of years. It's literally next door to the gasworks. From the bottom of our garden, you could almost touch the gasworks. where the famous gasworks,
Yep,
where
yep.
we had the Saltley miners' strike in '73, Saltley gasworks.
So
That
it's
was, I remember that event because I remember standing on the other side of the road watching those crowds of miners.
wow, that was quite an incredible time.
Yes.
So, did you go to school?
I did. So I arrived in October and 1971 January. So 2 months after I arrived, I started to. We used to have two immigrant reception centres in Birmingham. One was in Dudley Road, Stewart Street, and one was in Cherrywood Road, Cherrywood Centre. And the Cherrywood one was near us, but it was full. So I was told I can only go to the one in Dudley Road, Spring Hill, Stewart Centre. So I would, the number 8 bus passed at the bottom of our road. So I would, so I'm coming from a place where there's no buses, no roads, nothing. You walked everywhere. Now I don't have to walk because there is a bus I can catch, you know, I get on the number 8 bus. And I go through Aston Cross, Lozells, Hockley, Icknield Street, Icknield Port, into.
And you're doing this as a 12-year-old.
Well, by this time I'm 13.
13.
Yes,
Are you doing this on your own?
I am.
So 13-year-old
Yes.
traveling down the inner
Number
city
8,
Birmingham
yes.
on the 8 bus
Yes.
from Nechells to Spring Hill,
Yes.
and has just literally just got here.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Apprehensive, but also exciting. I'm a child. I'm in a new environment. I'm in a world where there is electricity. You can switch up. You don't have to use fields and the outdoor worlds as toilet. There's a toilet inside, and you flush it. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's scary. I'm apprehensive. I'm not sure, but it's also exciting.
So tell me about your time at school.
So I'm at a school where there are, and there's a photo here I have of the school, and there are children from all over the world, because they will also come as immigrants and they're sent there to learn English.
This is like a language center, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And there are girls. In my previous schools in Pakistan, it was always boys, no girls. But here, in the picture you'll see girls from Bangladesh, from Cyprus, from other countries, as well as Pakistani, maybe 1 or 2 Pakistani girls. And I'm there for 2 terms. So I start in January and I stay there until July, because by then I've learned enough English. I'm a quick learner. Remember, I was a good student back in Pakistan. I'm a good student now. I work hard. I knew a bit of English. I could read and write the script of English, and I work very hard. After 2 terms, they decide I know enough, and so I have to find another school near my house, and I go to school in Elliott Street in Nechells, and which is maybe 10-15 minutes walk from my new house, and I'm there in what was called the 3rd year, which will be year 9 now. And so from the 3rd year to the 4th year to the end of 5th year, I reached the age of 16. And remember, my parents are not here. I have to leave school and get a job so I could feed myself.
And what was the environment like in the school? Did you face any? How did you settle in? Did you make any friends? Were there any challenges?
It's a difficult. It's a good question, but difficult response. So I arrive at the school on my first day, and I go to the office, and I say to them, I'm a new child arriving at the school. Maybe I had a letter, and the school secretary says, she told me where my classroom was. And she said, just go through the hall, turn right, and then and she gave me the room number, and she said, that's your class, go there. I go to my class, and the children, the students are sitting, girls and boys, sitting behind desks on their chairs. There's no teacher. As soon as I arrive, a tall white boy gets out of his chair, picks me up, literally picks me up, lifts me up, bangs me against the wall, and he says, we don't want any more fucking Pakis.
Did you understand what was being done and said to you at that stage?
I didn't understand the words. Maybe I by this time knew, because I'd been here nearly a year. Maybe I'd had some abuse, but from his body language, what he was doing to me, I knew that these words were hostile. What he was doing was hostile, and he was very tall, much taller than I was, big, white, and I felt vulnerable as a child. I'm in a foreign country. I haven't got my parents. I feel I'm in a vulnerable state of being for those few months of arriving as an outsider. Quite a few of the children in the class laughed when he did that, and I remember him then putting me down, and he took a bow in front of the class. So he was obviously performing something. He took a bow physically, and they all laughed or clapped for what he had done. And I found ways of getting my own back on him later, but I remember that it put me in my place, and in some ways it was quite helpful, because when you know your place, you can deal with it. There's no uncertainty. As an immigrant, as an outsider coming into a situation, and so it's given me a strength, a resilience that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
So that's a very powerful story you just shared there. But I just want to, so this is the early 70s.
Yes.
I just want to talk a bit more about the community.
Yes.
So you said the women started to arrive. Because
Yes.
originally it was a very much a male-dominated Pakistani community.
Yes.
So, what did the community do? How did they socialize? Yes, we know. Where do they work? There's a lot said about where they work, but tell us where they work. But where do they socialize? And religion plays a big role in the Muslim community.
Yes.
What did that look like back then?
Okay. So work. There was quite a lot of work in the factories in those days. Plenty of work, and in fact, every time there was work, the foreman would say to our community, "Have you got any other people in your family who can come?" And sometimes they say, "Yes, I'll send for my cousin back in our village," and they would call them and get a job, and so there was plenty of work in factories, and also I hear that in those days what was happening was many of the factories were opening for the first time 24 hours.
Okay.
And there were...
That would have been 3 8-hour shifts.
They had invested in new machinery, and it was more cost effective for them to keep going 24 hours. So they instigated 3 8-hour shifts, and the night shift, nobody wanted to work from the local community. And also, some of the jobs our people were doing were dirty and menial and low paid that nobody wanted to do anyway, but especially at night, nobody wanted to do. So our community was there. So our community was center stage to the three shifts, the 24/7 working of industry. And you know, I've since found sociologists who back up. So that's what our people did work-wise. And some would work overtime. They would work double shifts, certainly shift and a half they would work. So that is 12 hours. And we have stories of people working double shifts, which is 16 hours. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So at the end, you were tired, you would sleep. There was very little time. And Saturdays in those days, if you worked, you got time and half. And Sundays you worked, you got double time. And so many people worked extra. So they had very little spare time. But what little time they had, they would visit each other and you know, just spend time. So family time. I've looked into the religion aspect, and religion, certainly when I arrived, there was very little religion. And I remember going to people's houses, which were used as prayer spaces, but there was very little religion. Very few people had the Quran in their house. Very few people said their namaz, their prayer. Very few people fasted because they were working hard. And, you know, when women started to arrive, people then started to fast and so on. And certainly Jummah prayers were said in big halls. Eid prayers were said. But normal 5 daily prayers, it was less. And in fact, when I have a story, somebody told me that when my father was here in 1957 for 5 years in his factory, he was the only man who went to the foreman and said, "Can I have time to pray?" Nobody else was praying. And so religion arrived late.
And it wouldn't be wrong of me to say that most of those people that came across the first generation
Yes.
weren't planning to stay here or for their families to be here 60, 70 years later. They came to earn some money to support their families back in Kashmir, back in Mirpur,
Yes.
back in Dadial. And the plan was to go back, wasn't it?
It was. So remember, back in Kashmir, there was a tradition that every family, in order to survive, they couldn't just rely on the land. I've researched this, and 3/4 of what they needed, they could get from the land or from locally. The remaining quarter, they had to send 1 or 2 people out of the area to go and work on the ships or in whatever. In my father, before he came to England, he had a donkey and he used to go away for 6 months carrying goods on. So there was a tradition of leaving your wife and your children and going away. So they thought England was another place where you go, you earn, you work hard, you work your double shifts and your overtime, and you come back after a few years. And that is what their intention. So in the early days, in the 50s, there were very few women in our community who came because they were back, you know, and people would go back. And in those days, they could go back for 2 years and stay there. And 1962 changed that. The first Commonwealth Immigration Act changed that. The government said, you can't just keep coming and going as you please. You have to make a decision. Are you going to stay or not? And so 1962 Commonwealth Immigration Act was the first time when our community decided to start to bring the wives and children. And then the rules also changed where they said, the government said, you can't bring your son. If you want to bring your son, you have to bring your wife as well. So late 60s, in order to bring your son, you now had to bring your wife. And so when I came, that is why my supposed mother, I came as a child of a relative. She came,
which was quite common.
Yes,
it is quite common across the, the South Asian community, where
Yes.
you would come as the sons or daughters of, particularly sons of close relatives, your dad's brothers, your and other such. I just want to move on to communication.
Yes.
And I remember my late father talking about something called telegram.
Yes.
If you wanted to get a communication across, particularly an urgent matter such as the death
Yes.
of
Yes.
a loved
Yes.
one,
Yes.
you would send a telegram. What is that? What was a telegram?
A telegram is something that I imagine was like a letter that was faster. It was communicated through telecommunication, and but I mean nowadays you send something and it's immediate. A telegram would take you a couple of days because it would arrive in a particular place over there, and it would somebody would walk to your house and bring it. But most of the time, people sent letters, and remember, the thing with letters was not everybody could write, so you had to find somebody who was literate. And usually every village had one. My father was one of those. Later I became one.
My mum was one of them.
Later I became that, people would come to our house and sit with my father, tell him what to say, and he would write on their behalf.
Those blue air mile.
It was, yes, absolutely. I have a box full of those.
Oh, wow.
From my father. So when I came, I received these letters from my father, and he would tell me, what I must do and how I must do it, and who should I go and see, and can I send some money, please, and all of that. And the buffaloes died, or whatever. And so that's how. And of course, the women couldn't read. So the women relied on the men to read those letters. And the other thing about the letters was they were always written in English, in Urdu. And our language is not Urdu.
Just before we started this interview, you presented this book, Tape Letters, to me, and
Yes.
and two books about tape letters. And this brought back memories for me
Yes.
as a kid,
Yes.
sitting around with my mom, listening to my beji, my nani,
Yes.
and my nani's sister,
Yes.
and the immediate family in Pakistan, particularly my nanke,
Okay.
recording cassettes, recording on cassettes and
Yes.
sending them over.
Yes.
So if somebody was coming over, they'd get a cloth put over the cassette in a safe way.
Yes.
You'd open that cloth up,
Yes.
you'd put it in, and the whole family would listen.
Yeah.
And then we would literally record a response straight away.
Yes.
And I remember my mom saying, Beji's listening, say hello to Beji, Balhar Poch, this, that. And it's just like something quite unique that you can't. And you've worked on a project, Tape Letters.
Tape letters.
And recorded this as history. This is incredible. It's just for a British-born Mirpuri,
Yes.
this brings back incredible memories for me. But tell us about why you did this and how important was this?
When you leave your loved ones, you stay in touch with them. And when the cassette tapes were invented I believe in the 60s, our community started to buy cassette players, and they discovered that actually instead of writing letters, which were in Urdu and not everybody could write, of course everybody could speak, and you could speak directly in your authentic voice to your loved one. And so my parents, who hadn't seen me for a long time, many years, could now send me a tape, record their voice and post it or give it to somebody who was coming to England, and I would receive it and I would listen to it, and it would be my mum or my dad speaking to me on my cassette machine. And I would then record a response in my own language.
Yeah.
And my mum could listen to it. She didn't need my dad to read the letter to her. She could listen to it herself.
Yeah.
She knew how to operate the cassette machine.
Yeah.
And so it was a liberation for people. It liberated them to speak directly. It was like a phone, only unlike a phone, it wasn't, immediate. Somebody wasn't.
It's like WhatsApp voice notes these days, isn't it?
It is absolutely. So this tape letters project has some 60 tapes and a whole project, and you can listen to them. And so if I want to listen to my father talking about something, telling me what to do, what not to do, how to conduct my life, I just listen to one of those tapes.
Amazing memories, and it's such a common thing across the community.
Yes.
Of how people were communicating with their loved ones back then, because
Yes.
Today, because of technology, today because of the internet, today because you got FaceTime, you got WhatsApp video calls.
Yes.
Your loved one, your mum or dad, who might be living on the other side of the world, will just feel like they're just around the corner from you. But back then, they felt a million miles away.
Yeah.
And these were the ways that our community.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you were wanting to focus on the early days. If I can talk you through a few things that I did, I thought if I focus on the 70s, I realized that you were not even born. So I'm talking about a world that existed before. Exactly. And talking about my life, it's quite humbling, makes me old.
Karamat, look, we can sit here and talk about an amazing journey, and we will have another opportunity to talk about some of the work around the wider community. Today was more about your personal journey, but I know you've done a lot of work about the community, and I'd love to sit down and record that. And for me, I've learned so much in this podcast, and I know our viewers will have learned so much as well about the challenges of the first generation, about the opportunities, but also the excitement of coming to this new environment and making this home. I just want to say a big thank you for sharing such an amazing story.
You're absolutely right. The Pakistani Kashmiri community has a big presence in Birmingham particularly. And I wrote a book called Dear Birmingham 2013, and I've done my PhD on British Pakistani boys. There is much that we need to talk about, and my generation looks to your generation because we firmly want to hand the baton over to your generation to keep on going. And so absolutely, let's talk again.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.